1,000 men were required to submit DNA evidence, and some bloke in a British pub had a few pints and admitted to somebody that Colin Pitchfork had paid him to submit DNA and use his name. He was later arrested, and so there you go. That comes out of the crime lab, was actually the British pub. With that, we'll talk crime labs. How about the TV show Bones, which was the longest running drama on Fox television? Main characters were, which one of these is not true, by the way? Main characters were Dr. Temperance Brennan and FBI agent Celie Booth. The series was based on novels by Kathy Reichs. The show aired for 12 seasons, 246 episodes. That's a lot of dead people, by the way. Bones' job was typically identifying human remains. Booth typically brought her the cases. Emily Deschanel played Bones and also served as the show's producer. And Bones worked for the Jeffersonian Institute Medico-Legal Lab. Which one of those is not true? Number 6. The producer was actually Kathy Reichs, who wrote the novels, and she was a producer for the show as well. So, which of these photos depicts Dr. Saroyan from Bones? A, B, or C? The answer is none of them. You have Sweets, Angela, and Hodgins. Those are not, Dr. Saroyan is not actually shown in any of those photos. The other great show, Crime Scene Investigation, CSI, which one of the following is not true about CSI? William Peterson and Marge Helgenberger starred as Gil Grissom and Catherine Willows. It became CBS's most successful series. The show won 6 Emmys. The lead character stayed the same for all 16 years of the show. The gas chromatograph mass spectrometer was a popular prop often seen on the show. Which one of these is not true? Number 4, yeah, the characters changed in this show, and so number 4 is not true. And then finally on CSI front, the show was set in Las Vegas, but the majority of it was actually filmed in Las Vegas or Yuma, Arizona, Calexico, California, Santa Clarita, California, Roswell, New Mexico, or Mabton, Washington. The answer is actually Santa Clarita, California is where most of the show was filmed. And then finally, if you never watched a single episode of Bones or CSI, pay $1. And if you thought a crime lab was a breed of dog, pay $5 and get counseling. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Next we have our speaker introductions. Larry Mattson.
All right. Who wants to learn about local government? I say that thoroughly tongue-in-cheek, knowing that local government topics can be eye-glazing and snooze-inducing, but that will not be the case today. I'm really excited because local government is where the rubber meets the road, and it's where we get to see our tax dollars at work. And after almost 30 years in government, in local government actually, there's not much that I get excited about. But Chris Wickenhagen, who I'll introduce in a minute, she and I worked together at the Conference of Governments, and last summer she invited me to the ribbon cutting for the crime lab. And so I thought, I've got nothing better to do on a weekday afternoon. It was a nice day, sunny day in Yakima. Headed out to Zilla, where the lab is, and Sheriff Udell was one of the speakers. And he gave me goosebumps when he talked. And so when I met with the program committee here in Rotary, and we were looking for ideas, I thought we've got to get Bob and Chris and Kathy in front of this group to learn more, because it's exciting what's going on here. Bob talked about the vision for the lab and how our valley deserves tools like this. And the problem the team is trying to solve is that crime crosses political boundaries. I think you all know that. And sometimes the information that law enforcement needs doesn't quite flow as well as it could across those various jurisdictional boundaries, and or it moves slowly. If the information does move at all, sometimes it's slower. So our local crime lab helps law enforcement move faster to solve crime. So to inform you about the vision today, we'll have Sheriff Udell. You know Bob, he's a fellow Rotarian, 34-year veteran of the Yakima County Sheriff's Office and lifelong Yakima Valley resident. He'll be our second speaker. That's intentional to constrain his time in front of you. And to share how it was done, we'll have Chris Wickenhagen. Chris is the Yakima Valley Conference of Governments Executive Director. Chris started with YVCOG in 2011, and when I was executive director there, Chris was my deputy, and we remain friends and in frequent contact, so it's great to have Chris back here. Chris has 30 years in public service, primarily in the education field, and she's active in her church as well. And to share the science with you, we have Kathy Guile. Kathy has 22 years as a forensic scientist and worked in the Washington State Patrol Crime Lab, as well as with Las Vegas Metro Police Department. She is a published forensic expert and has testified as an expert witness. So with that, Chris, can you tell us how the crime lab came to be?
Thank you, Larry. So Yakima Valley Conference of Governments is a local government, and what we do is we serve the different municipalities in the Yakima Valley. So some of the programs that we offer are land use planning, some housing, GIS mapping, and we do some strategic visioning for some, and we really fly under the radar because all of the authority stays within those cities when we work for them. So we're kind of an extension of their staff, and we provide programs and services for them. There we go. I have to learn how to use a clicker. So how did the crime lab get started? We received a grant from Commerce to go out and do some community outreach that involved law enforcement, and we did not want to surprise them. So we went to their monthly meeting of the police chiefs and the sheriff, and the presenters there were alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and they were talking about something called a NIBIN machine. And Kathy is going to give you all the lowdown on that in a moment. But what we heard and what was said to us from our prosecuting attorney is that the cost was prohibitive of any of our individual cities to be able to purchase this piece of equipment for them. So Joe Bruzik looked at me and said, "Hey, Chris, that's what COG does. You guys buy stuff and let us share it, right?" Yeah, we do, including staff. So we went back, put together a proposal, and we took it into Bob of how this could work if we were to purchase some equipment, hire expert staff, and allow all of them to tap into that service. Before Bob comes up, I want to just show you this so that you understand why our law enforcement and why our criminal justice system is so burdened with what is going on as far as homicides and drive-by shootings. This is data from Portland, and they're saying that 1.4 million per homicide shooting per suspect is what it's costing. That's the overall cost. And then for an injury, it's $670,000 per suspect. That is a huge burden on our taxes. From 2018 to 22, Yakima County saw a 31% increase in homicides. And as you can see, the numbers keep going up. Our hope is to be able to assist law enforcement with their investigations. Again, we just administer the program. We're the payroll, the HR for these people, and our police chiefs and our sheriff are the ones that are deciding the services that the crime lab will offer. The great reason to put things at COG is because we are that round table. And I'm sure Sheriff Udell will share a little bit about why that's so important. But if there is a program under one city, that governing body has authority over that program, which means if they choose not to fund it, the program goes away for the entire valley. Whereas at COG, all of the members share in that cost, and if somebody chooses to not participate, that program, that service is still there for the rest of the community. Bob, you're up next, and I don't know. Bob, come talk. I know. Where is your oh, there you are.
All right, the rumor's true. They did put me in the middle so I wouldn't get to talk much. I don't even have my own slide. Oh, geez. Anyway, it's so exciting to be here to talk about what I think is the greatest collaborative law enforcement project this county has ever seen. Ever. I'm an old dude. I take my hat off, right, and my forehead glows. I've been doing this for a long time, and this is it. And who would have thought it was going to happen right here in Yakima County? I've had the sheriffs come up to me and said, wow, how did you do this? And, can we send our stuff to you? It's really, really cool. We're going to talk more about that. Kathy's going to really get into it. But first of all, I guess, does anyone know what my favorite TV show is? You take a guess. Well, it's Sex and the City. No, I'm kidding. My favorite TV show is Longmire. Who has seen Longmire? Raise your hand if you've seen Longmire. There you go. If you haven't seen it, you're culturally deprived. All right, so I love that show. So my wife and I last summer, we made almost like a spiritual journey back to Wyoming, to a little town called Buffalo. And it's like the home base of the whole series, the TV show and everything. And we get there, ride up on a motorcycle, and get off the bike. We go into the Longmire gift shop. They have that. It's pretty cool. We walk in, and there's the author. He was wearing his cowboy hat, and he sees us. He mentions that we must be on a motorcycle. And I went up to him. I introduced myself. Hey, I'm Bob. And I said, I really like your show. I love your books. I said, it's a lot of entertainment, especially since I have a little connection because I'm a real sheriff. And he said, you're a real sheriff. Where are you from? I said, Yakima County. And I started to describe where Yakima County was, and he kind of leaned forward and said, I know all about Yakima County. And it wasn't good. Now, all of us in this room think Yakima County is a pretty cool place, don't we? But we get outside of our community, there's people that don't think that. Why do they think that? A lot of it's perception. I will say that. A lot of it is just absolute, it's just not good. But last winter, my wife and I also went through Boise, Idaho. Boise, Idaho is 200, this is the perspective part of my program, 270,000 people. That's a big city. Yakima County is about 260,000, so equivalent populations. And so I got on the website, and I go back to Boise Police Department, and I'm Googling across, and here's the chart that I'm very familiar with, all the FBI numbers, and there it is. Number of homicides for 2021, Boise, Idaho, 2. We had 35 in that same time frame. So there's a reason why there's that perception. I don't think it's fair, but we need to do something different, and we're doing it. We are now going to start working together, because this slide right up here shows you that it's just not perceptions. It costs this community money. Businesses coming here. We've had people that have called my office wanting to talk to us about, hey, is Yakima safe? I have a possible job opportunity. Is it really okay to come to? But now we're doing something about it, and it is so stinking cool. It's collaborative. We're all working together, and that's where the rubber is hitting the ground. And there's 3 big things that I think that we can really, that all law enforcement loves about this thing. Number 1,
Kathy's going to talk about this stuff. The modern forensic technology right here in our county, giving us results in sometimes hours compared to months, even years when it comes to DNA from the state crime lab. That is so neat. And that's something, I mean, right there, right now. And that is so important, again, because crime travels. I think Chris might have talked about that. Crime goes all over this city and county. Yakima Police Department has just created a PROACT team. They have a few officers on it, and where do they end up going a lot of times? Outside their boundaries. Crime travels, and we have to work together. So number one, up-to-date modern forensic stuff. Number two, we all share the same data system, but for years we've never really gotten together with it. The YPD's got their data, got my data, Sunnyside has their data, but we didn't have anybody that could put it all together, so we all have the big picture, and now we are. Finally, we have analysts that are taking all that information, putting it together, so everybody from the town of Tieton to Mampton to the city of Yakima, we all can enjoy the most up-to-date data, knowing who the bad guys are, because it's always just a few. It's never a lot of people. That's why law enforcement officers get on a first-name basis with the bad guys. It's just those few that are really irritating the rest of us. But finally, and this is what I love the most, is the collaboration that it brings between all of us. We went down to Zilla. Vicki Baker was a big part of this project as well. And we went down to Zilla, and we're giving the council our spiel about how this could be a change for all of the county. And they got to listen to us, and they turned to their police chief and said, well, what do you think about this? Well, I don't know, miming this, DNA. I guess it sounds pretty good. He said, but I will tell you this. This is what I think is cool. He said, for the very first time ever, as a police chief in Zilla, I've been asked to sit at the table and have the same input as anybody else in this county. That's huge. And this county has been, I think everyone in this room will agree, this has been a county of a lot of different kingdoms, and we're starting to change it. This is so exciting. This is good stuff, and it's running really well. I mean, we hit the ground running because we hired the right people. And this is going to lead me right to Kathy. Kathy Gall came to us from Las Vegas, and I don't let her talk about herself. She probably even has a slide up here that shows her credentials. They are as long as the service stripes on my arm. She has done all sorts of cool stuff, and we lured her here to Yakima. And she gave a presentation to the footprinters, and it was so, I couldn't get the smile off my face. She got up and talked about why she left a job that probably was paying good money in Las Vegas for Yakima. And she said she wanted to go someplace where she could make a difference. These are the people we're hiring for the crime lab. So I'd like to introduce Kathy Gall. Come on up here and tell us how this all works.
Well, they kind of made a mistake because I can ramble too, so give me a warning when my time's cut off. So really excited to be talking with you all and to be a part of this project. Before I launch into slides, I want to do a shout out. So I used to work at the Washington State Patrol Crime Lab, and I worked with a young lady that used to be over here at the Yakima Police Department, Kristen Schaefer, and we would talk about how there is a desert of forensic services here in this valley and all of the things that it really needed here to make a difference. And the Washington State Patrol is great, but that is a big boat, and it does not move quickly, and they never built a central lab, and it was very frustrating, and the services just were lacking. You're not getting the response. The wait time is ridiculous, and it's not getting any better, hence we're here. And so she started talking to me about this project well before it got started up, and I said, where do I sign up? And she's like, you'd move? And I'm like, 100%. This is what we've talked about forever. This is your vision. I want to, she can't move back. They've tried, being able to implement and be a part of this in order to bring this to the Valley is just amazing. And I love the collaboration and the community that goes behind it, and the support is, I've worked in government and law enforcement for so long, typically the support isn't there. Usually you're scraping for things. I need this, I need that. And they're like, well, no, maybe next budget cycle. But the support that I've gotten here, getting this up and running, has just been amazing. And it's just really touches my heart. And I'm just really proud to be a part of this. I'm not born and raised in Yakima, but I kind of feel it's home already, even after only 7 months, because of the community outreach that I've gotten from everyone. So I want to just thank you all for that. So there's a big picture of me. We'll just skip over that. So the vision behind, I probably don't need this microphone, the vision behind this crime lab you have, you can build crime labs in lots of different ways, right? But what we wanted to do and what was really lacking from your current forensic services or previous forensic services was the investigative lead, getting information back to the investigator, officer, deputy, detective, whomever, to let them know, is there any information that you have with that firearm, that cartridge case, that swab for DNA, fingerprints. Get them information back so that they can utilize it in their investigation within days. I'm hoping hours, we're getting there, instead of, you guys are going to believe this. I looked at the backlog of State Patrol, and I said, okay, tell me what you got in the county. 999 days that a gun has been sitting in the backlog waiting to be test fired. That is a 30-minute job. It does not take long. So why is it that way? Well, they're drinking through a fire hose. They have all the counties. They're trying to mitigate everything. Things are going to court. They don't have the resources or the time to do it. It's not that they're all reading the newspaper, having bourbon in the back. They are trying to do the best that they can with what they have as well. But it's a big ship, right? There's a lot of resources. There are a lot of hungry mouths. And so they're trying to do the best that they can. And usually it goes to what's going to court tomorrow. They're usually just putting out fires, right? They're not taking care of these early investigative leads, no suspect, no victim. But what's hiding in those cases that they're not doing is potential information to help our investigators progress that case and not let it go stale. So what we focused on here is the investigative leads. We're not doing the confirmations just yet. We're going to maybe get there. We're just going through and using forensic technology to get information back as quickly as we can to our investigators. I have a backlog today because I got handed cartridge cases an hour ago. That's my only backlog. Otherwise, I'm caught up. So that's what, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure that what we get today gets out and done as soon as possible. So we put all the resources in place. And if anybody knows me, I don't like being told no, and I don't like being told you can't do it. So I was like, okay, I'm staying late. I'm getting this done. You know what I mean? So I don't like to put things back. My partner is not really happy with me most of the time because I'm a project person, not a clock puncher. So he's like, come home. I'm like, okay. So here are the services that we're starting. NIBIN, which is the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network. Take home, it takes pretty pictures of the head stamps of a cartridge case and it enters it into a network so that we can search it and compare or to look at other cartridge cases that get entered to see if there's any associations, meaning that that gun might have been used in multiple shooting events. What's nice is, I think we're up to 550 NIBIN sites across the U.S. So what they're putting in New York, I can also search against. So if we have someone going across the country, DC sniper, you can track them with this NIBIN. So that's the big case that NIBIN really got utilized. We're also doing cell phone extractions. Before, I'm not quite sure how it was working, but it didn't seem to be very efficient. Cell phone extractions were hit and miss. Do you have someone who has the time? Do they have this really expensive program? Now we're a central hub for those cell phone extractions. We have an intel analyst that can help a detective while he's in the interview room or she's in the interview room and says, hey, this person says they know this person. Is that true? She types through her subscriptions, little dark web, and comes back and says, you know what, they are associated. So, I mean, those kinds of information that she can assist with. And then last but not least is rapid hit DNA, and that's coming on board. We have the crate in the hallway. We have the supplies are ordered to process it, and they're coming to install it and train us, and it's probably in my inbox of when, sometime in the end of March or April. I just emailed them a bunch of dates. So let's go. Here's NIBIN. On the right side is the black box that we put the cartridge case in, and you can see on the screen that is the primer of the cartridge case, or the head stamp area of the cartridge case. If you know anything about ammunition, I can talk about that all day if you like. We can talk later. But what it is it's taking pictures of those markings that got left on that cartridge case or shot shell when that it was fired in the firearm. Then that goes to space, California, space back to us, and gives us a list of possible correlation results. And so a list of possible associations, but we look through it and see what's actually an association and what's just noise. It always comes back with a list. We kind of equate it to Match.com. It always comes back, right? Not necessarily everything you want to go dating, but it always comes back with something, so we look through that. The algorithm's pretty good, but I can also do a manual search. So if an agency says, hey, I have investigated information that it might be linked to this other case, can you look at that? Sure enough, I can pull it up, I can do that look, and I can double check. I can also, like I said, run it across the United States. So if you think they came from Chicago, I can also search anything that got entered in Chicago. So here's, we also, to help the agency, if they need latent prints or DNA or that firearm swabbed, we can do that prior to test firing, prior to handling it ourselves. So there's nothing in the way of getting it shot and entered into NIBIN, getting those possible associations or leads back and getting that to the agency. So we're trying to get rid of some of those roadblocks that maybe would have delayed a NIBIN entry. If you have evidence cartridge cases left at a scene, so say you have shots fired, there's 20 cartridge cases at a scene, those can be collected. What we call triage or screen those cartridge cases and put them into groups based on their characteristics. And then I can enter one of that group into NIBIN and search and see if there's any other cartridge cases from any other shooting scenes that it links to. Sometimes it's fun is that it actually will link to a firearm. The firearm was collected maybe a day before it got brought into the lab early, and before the cartridge cases got there due to logistics. So it's always fun when I call them up and go, hey, by the way, I actually know, I have a lead on where your firearm is located. You might want to call this person. So that's always a fun thing. We're like, oh, okay, we'll definitely go do that. So that's the power of NIBIN. And it will tell all the different agencies, linking all the different shootings where maybe they would have no investigative information to even talk to each other about their shooting events. Here's our investigative support, cell phone extractions like I mentioned, doing link charts, helping with the organization of all of the intelligence that comes with a case, and our intel analyst is really good with that. Here's our rapid DNA machine. It's literally, we call it a toaster, because you put your finger on it and you put the cartridge in and it runs the DNA sample that you have in there. So if you go, but it has some limitations. So it's not your traditional DNA that's done at the Washington State Patrol lab. You need to have everything that we run through here confirmed. Just like with NIBIN, it's just an investigative lead. It all gets confirmed if you're going to go to court and actually, go through the trial process. You can't just go with the profile that comes out of this rapid hit. But what it can do, though, is help triage. So the Washington State Patrol will only take 2 to 5 samples. You're an agency and you go, I have a lot of different samples here. Which one's the best one to take and go spend money and time to go get confirmed? We can triage that for them and help them out. So they're not sending samples that maybe are the victim and so they don't add any value, or they're not actually blood, or they're not actually saliva, or there's no information. So we can help with that triage to get the right samples in the right spot and get that process started more correctly instead of this sample, this sample, this sample. So, and it was also great too, and the reason why I joined forensics is the ability to get that exoneration. So if they have someone in custody or a person of interest, and they're not the contributor of that sample, and you run it, and their profiles don't align, then they can go on with their life, right? So that they're not, and the agency then can redevelop their resources to go in the right direction instead of maybe focusing on somebody. So, and that's, again, why I love forensics, is that we can get those answers to the people who need it right away, and being able to move forward with an investigation correctly and with the right amount of information. I think that's my last slide. So here's the badges of all of the agencies that are currently participating in the local crime lab. Pretty exciting. I love we just had an ops board meeting, and it's so great to have all the chiefs and the sheriffs sitting around and talking about the services they want to see and how to get together and how to communicate and all the new programs. And that's what I love, is just constantly morphing and making better. And, you know, if someone throws up a roadblock, we figure out how to tear it down. So I think I did good on time. Yay. Questions, or do we do that? Okay. I see a hand. Yes.
How does this technology curb crime? Your ability to persecute people or set them free happens quickly, but how does it directly correlate to reducing crime?
Great.
Or does it?
Yeah, 100%. Right. So I'm a firearms person, so I'm going to go back to firearms. DNA is great. I have my degree in genetics, but it was in plants, so you know. So if a NIBIN lead, if I can tell an agency that their shooting scene was linked to another shooting scene that happened, say, a week ago in another jurisdiction, and they start looking at flock cameras, or they start looking at the people involved, the addresses, the things, I give them that link, so now they can investigate. Maybe that one had more information to solve this one. So you start zeroing in with more it might give you more information to help solve the current case, as well as add maybe more information to the previous case. So now you can actually move through an investigation that may have gone cold because there's no information. So it's getting the targeted investigative information to the agency so that they can then focus on doing what they do best, which is getting those people off the street or whatever it is they do. I'm a lab rat, so we'd have to ask maybe Bob for more of the specifics on actually how they go from what I do to cuffs, but you know, I just give them information, and my understanding is that that information getting to them timely allows them to do their job to get that person off the street. And as Sheriff Udell mentioned, it's really like a few people do a majority of the crime. So if we can focus that and get those people off, please tell me if I'm saying anything wrong, then you get them off the streets and get them discussing their activities. I'm sure you just have a nice conversation over coffee, correct? That's how it works. Yeah, that's what I figured, right. And then so that's my understanding of how getting this information to them quickly is what they've said, is that then they can utilize that to help that investigation and get to that, the next step, which is apprehending and discussing and things.
The whole goal is to have more effective investigations with higher quality prosecutions, leading ultimately to less offenders, less need for jail, less need for other expensive services. That is the goal, is to actually reduce crime.
Yeah, I hope to be out of a job one day. Let's just say, I'm going to let this lady pick who gets to speak.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. My question is, with this new crime lab, is that going to reduce the $1.4 million per homicide cost?
So, well, I don't know how they got their number. I know I'm a part of that cost, right? They have to hire the forensic scientist that then is going to go to court. So I know they included us in that. But my imagining is if you get those people off the street to then commit more crime. So, for instance, I'll use the rapid DNA. So say you have a breaking and entering, and up until, April 1st, they said they're going to start working on them, but we'll see. So the State Patrol won't run those samples. So you have a suspect comes through, some person breaks the window, bleeds on the window, we collect their sample, they have a person of interest, I make the alignment, they have a discussion, right? That burglar now doesn't go on to do more things, potentially. So usually you don't start with homicide, is my understanding. You start with, say, maybe a smaller crime. So maybe we can help with the drive-bys, shootings, the shooting of a stop sign and linking those up, and give the agency that information to have those discussions with those individuals.
So given how you get to the point on things, your 1 hour backlog is going to turn into I'm done by 10:30. How do you, first of all, how are your ongoing operations going to be funded? And secondly, is there a possibility this might regionalize and you might take in other jurisdictions?
So, really good question. We did get ARPA money to buy all of the big pieces of equipment. And what's great about this piece of equipment that I've shown you is that they don't age rapidly. So they're going to be around for a while. So, which is great because our operating budget is under $1 million. It's about, what, 550, 600,000 right now. We actually have a free person, which is fantastic, from the ATF. They don't cost us anything. It's delightful. And so we're trying to keep our budget low and being able so that we're managing that. We've worked out the numbers, and if nothing significantly increases, hopefully, the cost of living doesn't go too much further than it already has, we'll be able to sustain till 2030. And plus some, we'll have some extra monies. Right now, the cities all chip in about $1 something a person. Yeah. That's my finance people over there, right? And they are matching the ARPA monies that's coming through. So I take great care in keeping the costs low. We try to find free. I actually have pens from the dollar store so that we are, literally, because we are trying to keep our budget manageable, and I'm always looking out 10 years and how to sustain us. Once we're here a year and I understand what kind of service and the load that we're going to have for the lab, that is when we're trying to reach out and make sure it's okay with the operations board, but reach out to other counties and say, okay, looks like we're going to be able to handle us first, and then we're going to now bring in others, because we have gotten a lot of interest in neighboring counties. Actually, interest from the Washington State Patrol chief came to visit us, and he goes, wow, this is fantastic. Because we're not only helping our community, but we're helping the whole state, because they haven't done the 215 guns that we've already processed. They haven't had to process the 600 cartridge cases that we've already processed. So they can use that overtime for something else. So they've been doing all of this NIBIN and stuff on overtime. So now they can utilize their resources better. So we're not only helping ourselves, but we're also helping the Cheney lab and the Seattle and the Tacoma labs that are trying to manage this fire hose. So, but yes, it's something we think about constantly. Sustainable. We're also grant funding. Poor Kristen will probably never leave. She will always be a part of us, because we're going to write her into every grant so that she can be part of our grant funding to get more money. So we have lofty aspirations of winning every grant that's out there, and but we'll see. So that can add services. Yes.
Great presentation, and I can see why you're all excited. Your talking seems like it's focused on weapons, guns, knives, whatever. What about the drugs and the fentanyl deaths and the overdosing? And is this involved in it, that process?
Well, here comes the sheriff. Oh, man.
Okay, excuse me. Firearms and drugs are related, just like in gangs. Gangs, drugs, firearms. You cannot cut those with anything except a laser cutter, right? I mean, those things, they're locked together. So when you hit one of those things, like guns, it's going to naturally lead you to the drugs and other violent components of our society. Okay, that's big. But we're moving on. We understand fentanyl is a big deal right now in our society, right across all the United States. Vicki Baker's been working in the legislature really hard to get money, and I hate to say anything before, our eggs are hatched, but she may be getting close to $400,000 to support investigating fentanyl overdoses and associated crimes. That's big, and we know that, so we're headed that way.
Yeah, any other questions? Okay.
That does it. All right.
No, I wouldn't have wanted to been in your spot when Sheriff Udell came running up here. That was really fascinating, and I got a lot of strange looks when I first got here, and I said, oh, I'm so excited to hear about this program. It really is exciting, and I love your energy and passion, all three of you, around this, and I think we can all see what a benefit to our community it is. Will you guys be able to stick around if there's some people who have questions? But let's not keep you too long because you have some cartridges you need to process. Anyway, as a speaker gift, we're going to make a contribution in all three of your names to Northwest Harvest to address food insecurity. Thank you. Next week's program, we have a group of people coming to talk about registered apprenticeships in the Yakima Valley. And the following week after that is Diverse Lands, Unified Vision, the expansive reach of the DNR. Our very own Raul Martinez will be presenting that. We have a committee meeting, Fellowship and Fireside Scholarship Dinners with Sony Alexander and Ryan Anderson. Where are you guys? Where will you be meeting? Conference room 2. And have a good afternoon. We're officially done with this meeting.